back to Storytime with Dan Booker. Today we're going to continue on with Gods and More Gods. And the last reading we did was Perry's Prerogative. So we've done that one. Not sure where we are. Here we go. So we're in Gary's Glen now. So that's our next location we're going to visit. Gary arrived at his land mass and looked it over. Well, pleasant as it was, he still couldn't arouse himself to anything approaching enthusiasm. He felt doomed to failure before he even began. For the life of me, he couldn't understand how anyone would ever pick him from all spirits for godhood. He sat underneath a tree and created a notebook. He'd have to figure out what was needed and when. He started well as he mapped out a training program for the people he was going to bring. He thought about shelters that could be easily constructed. He noted where things to eat were and things to avoid. He listed what animals were in this area and what use they could be put to. He wasn't sure about prayers. His idea that someone would consider him worthy of praying to was beyond his comprehension. He picked out areas for settlements near water, food, and sheltering trees. He made rocks that could easily be shaped into tools. He was starting to feel a little confident. Sitting by the river, one of the many that flow through his area, he dug some clay and made models of all the things he wanted his people to construct. Well, they didn't turn out very well. He kept thinking as a person and not a god. He didn't feel like a god. Nothing in his makeup could prepare him for the omniscience necessary to guide his chosen people to success. He curled up into fetal position and cried. He was alone and he missed Gladys. She usually found him whenever he was hiding and did her best to cheer him up. Just having her near or around made things tolerable. He did the only thing he could think of and he prayed to her. Standing in spirit form before him, Gladys looked down as a mother would a despondent child. His need for her presence was so strong she had heeded the call. Kneeling beside him, she raised his face so he could see that she had arrived in answer to his prayer. The look in his eyes showed that he was terrified. He felt he was in way over his head. Sitting beside him, she spoke comfort and wisdom. Gary, you are now a god. You have powers that can change anything. You have spent your life and death in fear. She created a bear, huge and terrifying. He was created in the far distance, but in line of sight of Gary. She leapt behind him and trembled. The bear charged, growling and roaring and gaining speed. Gladys pretended to be too afraid to do anything. Gary, send it away. Protect me. I'm too afraid to do it myself. She pleaded with a trembling voice. All the time, the bear was swiftly closing the distance between them. Gary looked back and saw terror in her eyes. She was the only one who cared about him. She was his anchor, and she needed him now. Getting courage from her fright, he moved her further behind him. A wave of his hand, and the bear lunged. A wave of his hand as the bear lunged, and the bear was no longer there. Her sigh of relief was bracing to him. He stood and held out his hand. She smiled and stood on her own. Thank you. You see? You can do what needs to be done when you must. Well, now you have this to do. She waved her hand at the vast expanse of land he was to populate. And do it you will. I have faith in you, and when we meet at our home above the clouds, we will rejoice in the progress you have made. Gary sat down, leaning back against a tree. With the clarity of a god, he looked back over his life, past and present. He had been created by Karen, and she had used him as a whipping boy. Anytime things went south for her, she would bring torments onto Gary. In some sense, he was the whipping boy for humanity, kept her from destroying all the people she had created. She could unleash her fury on Gary, feel better, and continue. In every life, Gary had borne the brunt of her anger, and it became common for him to cringe, waiting for the next disaster to fall on him. Even in spirit form, the torments continued so long as she was in charge. When Fred took over, he still expected the worst, continually bracing himself for the time when Fred would also turn on him. And the pain began again. What had been forced on him became his personality. It saturated his very soul. Now he was being asked to purge that part of himself and create life that he would be responsible for. In all his life, he never had a family because he didn't want to be the cause of their misfortune. Confused and in need of superior guidance, he went to see Fred. Take a break for a second. Sir, I want you to purge my soul from what your sister has done to me. I can't create life thinking they will suffer because of me. Fred had known of Gary's issues and was ready to do what he could to assist. He was about to purge Gary's spirit when he realized that might not be the right thing to do. Gary, if this is what you truly want, I will do it, but I want you to think about it first. Gary was almost in tears. He'd done nothing but think about it forever. Fred saw his anguish and felt it in his own heart. He spoke softly, trying to get through to him that what he considered his greatest weakness was now his greatest strength. Gary, who understands suffering better than you? Who can feel the pain of loss better than you? Because of all you have been through, who would be a more compassionate God than you? Out of all the new gods, you have the most humanity. Your voice may be the one to prevent the suffering of others by the new gods. You'll be their voice and champion. Gary pondered on what Fred had said and gasped when he realized he was right. Purged of all his past, he would be different. He would be a different God, a different person. His could be the voice of compassion, the plea for mercy of the people from a God to other gods. His pain really was his strength. He stood and his body straightened instead of being hunched, his head held high for the first time. He had two missions now. First, to build and create his section of Earth. Second, to be the voice of the people they would populate the Earth with. Not just his, but all the people. He'd be the champion that would fight heaven and earth to protect them. He came back to Earth a changed God, determined now to do it right. He created the basics of what they needed to start. He asked for volunteers, not choosing as some of the others would do, and had done. He gave them names and positions. He chose leaders and instructed them on what they owed the people they led. He led by example, teaching, showing compassion when they failed, encouraging them when they succeeded. For the first year, he never left them. He ate with them, slept, rough as they did, hunted, fished, cried, and laughed. His people understood that he was their God, that he was more than just a leader, and the fact that he lived as one of them, taught by example, suffered when they did, and took pleasure in small successes, made them a desire to keep his favor. They gave him reverence, stronger than the other gods could ever receive, because it came from deep felt love. Over time, the village grew and became stronger. There were no enemies except for a few wild animals, but he wanted them to feel safe so they could sleep soundly. People created stands in the trees so that any approaching animal could be dealt with before anyone was in danger. Now, before the year was out, the next generation was born, and from 500, the village grew to 800 and more. With more mouths to feed, it was time to learn to cultivate. The leaders chose from what was available in grain and fruit and vegetable. They transplanted, gathered seeds, or chose stock from the wild animals. He taught them rudimentary building, storing, and drying. He had an area that had 4 seasons, and he prepared them for the winter months. They became creative and made sandals. When it became colder, they wrapped the sandals in fur and created boots. Capes became coats. They became experts in adapting with Gary's help. Small changes made them want to change other things. They could control rivers by changing their path. They adapted bamboo into shovels. Stone tools became commonplace. During the first winter, they discovered that if they built fire on stones, the stones gave off heat long after the fires died. On the anniversary of their first year, Gary needed a break. It had been a worrying time, and though his people were doing well and even better than he had expected, there was still the nagging doubt in the back of his mind. He decided to go home for a short while, let his people manage and gain strength from their own independence. He explained that he was leaving for a short time and how they could pray to reach him if it was needed. From the look on their faces, they didn't want him to leave. They threw a farewell celebration in his honor and promised him another on his return. Before he left, he took the leader that he had chosen and blessed her. She glowed at his touch and gained strength. Gary looked around before fading out. The people were in a circle surrounding him, bent to the ground in reverence and smiling. As he faded, he could feel their love. In the rear of the circle, even Dionysus, who had been checking on things, here bowed in honor of the changing Gary and the loving care he gave his people. All right, so that's it for this chapter. The next chapter is Don's Dominion. Hey, there we go. Now we get to see how the guy who thinks he knows everything does with his own section. So that's going to be fun. All right, so that's it for today. We will be back online in about 3 days or so I look forward to seeing you. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you listening in. I hope you are enjoying these, and if you are, please leave a comment. So I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of days. Be good to yourselves, and have a good, well, today's Friday, so have a good weekend if it's your Friday too. Bye.